The Coues deer is a subspecies of the white-tailed deer. To be technically correct, it is pronounced Coues. It is named after Dr. Elliott Coues, a naturalist and army physician who first described them in the 1860s. Most people pronounce it Coues. Coues deer are not very big. A fat mature buck will weigh 120 pounds. Dressed out, a big Coues buck will weigh 100 pounds. A stout hunter can carry one across his shoulders. After processing, you may get 20 to 30 pounds of very tasty meat. The minimum Coues deer score for Pope and Young is 70 inches. The minimum score for Boone and Crockett is 100 inches. Velvet bucks are not included in the Boone and Crockett records. The Coues whitetail is classified under a separate category in all record books because of its small, tight rack. Coues deer are most common in Arizona's southeastern mountains, but range up to the Mogollon Rim and into the White Mountains. They are most abundant in areas that get summer rain. YouTube influencers have contributed to an increased awareness of the diminutive Coues deer. For example, Coues deer comprised less than 15% of Arizona's deer harvest in 1961, but today they comprise over 40% of total deer harvested. With increased interest, there has also been a greater awareness of trophy potential. Field judging Coues is as much an art as a science. A simple formula is 30, 30, 25, and 15. You add those together to get the magic number of 100, which is what I personally consider to be a trophy. The minimum score for Boone and Crockett is 100 inches. The second 30 corresponds to the tine length. The 25 is for the mass, and 15 is the inside spread. Let's take them in reverse order, starting with 15. I look first at the spread. Generally, if the spread is wide, then the beam will be long. 15 stands for the spread. Coues bucks are usually 15 to 17 inches ear tip to ear tip. If the antlers extend to the edge of the ears, then you have close to a 15-inch inside spread. The antlers on a Coues buck rarely extend beyond the ears. Mass is probably the most difficult to judge in the field. We will skip the 25 for the mass for now because unless the antlers are particularly thick or thin, it is difficult to judge. The next thing I look at is the tine length. G1 is the eye guard, G2 is the next point along the beam, G3 is the next point, and so on if there are more points. Let's say the eye guard, G1, measures 3 inches, the G2 measures 7 inches, and the G3 measures 5 inches. And the other side is similar, then we have a score of 30. Next is beam length. If the antlers extend to the tips of the ears, this is a good indication of a long beam. So if the outside of the beam reaches the edge of the ears, you probably have a 15-inch beam. Adding both sides together would give you another 30 for the score. Mass is the circumference of the beam measured at 4 places. Judging the mass comes with practice. If it adds up to 25, then you have the potential for a 100-inch buck. Let's look at some examples. This is a shooter buck. Actually, it's a great buck. He has good width and beam length. The G1s are a little above average and the G3s are a little below average. Mass, of course, is the toughest to judge. It's difficult to really dial down on. He probably has a 3-inch base, so he's probably acceptably heavy. But if you're looking for that Boone and Crockett buck, I don't think he's quite there. This is a great example, but to me, it adds up to a 90s buck. This next buck gives us another great frontal view, and you can just see this is a wide buck. He may be a little wider on his right side. When they move their ears, it can be a little deceptive, but he's out past his ears by at least an inch, so we're looking at a 15 or 16-inch spread. Again, when you look at him in the front, it looks like his tines aren't very long. but that can be false. A side view will give us a better indication. His eye guards are fantastic. Those are 4-inch eye guards. If you get 4 inches out of the eye guards, you're doing really well. This could be a 100-inch buck. It's hard to say for sure. His beam length is fantastic. We may not get quite 15 inches out of his tines, maybe 14 inches. I'm guessing those eye guards are 4. G2s and G3s are both right around 5. That's around a 17-inch beam. Because he looks about 16 inches wide, beams are almost always longer than the spread. Those look like 17-inch beams. So you're getting 34 inches of beam, 28 inches of tine. His mass is just fine. I don't think we'll quite get 25 inches of mass, but he's there. And he's wide enough. That's a 100-inch buck. So this deer has about a 14-inch beam, but he looks nice. Definitely a shooter if he's the only mature buck that you see. They're not quite twins. Which one are you going to shoot? This one is narrow. He's got good tines, but it's not going to be enough. This one does angle up a bit more. It probably shares some of the same genetics. He looks very similar. The left side is not as wide, which is pretty common. Sometimes one side is wider than the other, but still that one side is out to his ear. The other side isn't quite, but we're still looking at least a 14-inch spread, maybe 15. And his tines are still great, and his beams are equal. You'll see 2 or 3 bucks a lot of times hanging out together. Not always, but the velvet bucks are seldom alone. They will usually have a buddy or a doe with them. The whitetail are so wary, it's almost impossible to stalk a whitetail. If you get the right conditions, you can do it. During the rut, you can do it, but it's hard. If it's not during the rut, the conditions have to be just about perfect. The buck has to be in a good spot, bedded, and they're really hard to spot bedded. If you can watch him bed, that's ideal. It helps if you can shoot longer distances too. There's a big difference between getting 60 yards from a Coues deer and 40 yards from the deer. If you're waiting for that booner, you may have to content yourself with tag soup. The deer are hunted hard, and the big bucks are often in remote areas that are far from a road. Few hunters go more than 2 miles from a road. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.